Hi guys, my name is Ciaran Madden. I'm the editorial director of Rita, and I'm here with Ronan McMahon, who is in Guadalajara. Hey Ronan, how's life there?
Great, Kieran. A bit of a nip in the air this morning. So looking forward to diving in.
Very good. I wanted to check in with you today because we wanted to share with Rita members kind of your overview. The end of last year, you took a scouting trip to Paraguay's capital, Asunción, and I was personally blown away by what the kinds of things you were uncovering there. You shared a video in Rita where you kind of toured the neighborhood where you were staying, and it looked incredible. And in general, we've been hearing a lot from our beat about Paraguay. So I wanted to sit down and kind of get your deep dive take on what you discovered in Paraguay. So maybe we dive straight into it, Ronan. Maybe start off by telling us how you started hearing about Paraguay and why you
Y-
decided to take a scouting trip there.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just to kind of jump a bit to the end, so we just kind of have context for all of this. Paraguay's capital, Asunción, it's a place where you can buy truly luxury real estate, just really, really high-end condos from $200 per square foot, which is just impossible in pretty much anywhere else on earth. The bricks and the mortar and the steel and the labor, add it all up, it's going to come to much more than that before you even think about the developers' profit and margins and all of that. And so we've incredibly inexpensive real estate. We have a solid short-term rental market that yields like high occupancy at very low rates, and that can translate into a yield of about 7 or 8%. It's a really, really nice walkable city, or should I say, it's a city with really, really nice walkable high-end neighborhoods. And it's a country that's got a compelling macro story in the sense that they have, more electricity than they can use. They've got huge agricultural capacity. The demographics are incredibly robust, just a really, really young population. And it's a very open and free economy that attracts a lot of international people and money, primarily its neighbors. So it's getting a lot of attention lately because a lot of Europeans are moving there. But the big driver historically has been Argentines and Brazilians. So the core thesis here is that Paraguay's economy continues to grow. That will trigger a explosion in real estate values in those high-end neighborhoods and also a big uptick in yield. So that's the thesis that I'm going through the journey of assessing and making a calculation as to whether this is something I want to put in front of Rita members as an actionable deal as opposed to a research endeavor. So I guess, Kieran, the bottom line is that there's been, a very, very significant amount of Paraguay buzz in the international world over the past months. It's a place that's been, you know, aggressively attracting digital nomads, young mobile people. It's attracting them with really, really easy, visas. It's attracting them with very, very low taxes, with extremely low cost of living and accommodation. Plus, the capital, Asuncion, is very, very pleasant. In many ways, it reminds me of what I imagine this city of Guadalajara was 25 or 30 years ago, with really nice leafy streets, leafy neighborhoods. Things are neat and tidy. The people are really nice. It's very pretty. It's just a really pleasant place to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, the images, the video you showed there was well, I include the link to the walk around of the neighborhood where you stayed. Like, I mean, it looks like an incredibly pleasant place. And the numbers, then when you compare that, like the lifestyle that we've heard about, and you compare that to the numbers that you've just told us and what that translates into, brand new condos, like studios for 60 grand and brand new two beds for $100,000. Like this is very, very compelling. I mean, it's very hard to imagine any other kind of world city, world capital that's kind of on the up, where these kind of prices are really possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you know, I was curious about what was going on here. And, you know, then I got word that a fellow Rita member, Kurt, was actively spending time there and investing there. I jumped on a Zoom with Kurt, which, you know, we shared with fellow Rita members. And that really kind of triggered my interest in wanting to go. So from there, I lined up a trip. Kurt was very gracious to show us around for those couple of days, and I traveled with a member of my team who was deals focused. So just, you know, this is just an interesting perspective in terms of how the sausage is made. I was there to make an assessment on the macro story, the big idea. And meantime, my colleague was, you know, lining up developer meeting after developer meeting, just really sitting down with the best in class developers to, again, you know, make a short list that if the macro idea stacks up, the macro Paraguay idea stacks up, the Asunción idea, then we break down by neighborhood. We have the relationships with the developers to pull the trigger and to make a Rita members only deal. I guess, Ciaran, it's interesting. These journeys are interesting because I think what first drew me to Paraguay was this, you know, this international arrivals story, you know, this primarily, you know, digital nomads, mobile international folks moving there. That's where the kind of the original Paraguay buzz came from, or came to me from. But as I dug, you know, I started to find a what I believe a far more compelling and robust case for Paraguay, which is its domestic economic potential over the coming decade or so. So we have this influx of digital nomads, remote workers. Those are contributing to the economy and the internationalization of the economy. But for me, the big thing going on here, because you know there's always going to be a next place that bubbles up with a better deal for digital nomads, lower taxes, lower costs of living. You know, those people coming is a step along the way. The big Paraguay story and the big thesis that I'm grappling with is, you know, you have among the most compelling demographics in the world. Just this is just such a phenomenally young country. It's a young country. I mean, it's seen incredible population growth. They've lots of land to spread out. You know, the population was decimated with wars in the 1800s. And you go to meetings, you go to malls, and like, Ciaran, like, I mean, I've never been anywhere before where I always felt like the oldest person in the mall, the oldest person in the boardroom. You know, it's just phenomenal. It's young, it's vibrant, they're energetic, they're globally connected. So we have those demographics. Of course, those demographics in and of themselves are meaningless if there's no opportunity for the people, because those people just, you know, sit in poor neighborhoods or go overseas if there isn't opportunity for them. But the thing is, Paraguay has just an incredibly low tax, low friction, free economy. So what that means is a lot of mobile business from the region is upping sticks. They're moving from Argentina, they're moving from Brazil, and they're moving into Paraguay as a base. Because think of Paraguay as a mini trade tax haven. And this is just creating a real vibrancy. You've got all these young, dynamic Argentines, Brazilians, and Uruguayans coming here to chase opportunity. And just remember, so they're right next door to the powerhouses of South America. Then, Ciaran, I mean, you think about it, what does the world need? I mean, we've no electricity and we've no food. I mean, if you think of the world's great problems, it doesn't get more simple than this. And Paraguay runs entirely off hydroelectricity, and they export 80% of that. Plus, they have more capacity to unleash. So, again, to be clear, this isn't Switzerland. I mean, they have challenges with their electricity distribution systems, but the potential for industry, the potential for data, AI, tech centers, and also just the potential to grow and to expand. I mean, electricity is just, I mean, wherever you look. I mean, you go to the Netherlands, it'll take you 5 to 9 years to get an electric connection. No one wants to do offshore wind in the North Atlantic, not because the rates that they're guaranteed won't work, but because they can't get connected to the grid. So Paraguay has the solution for this. Plus food potential. It is a big, highly agriculturally productive country. A significant portion of the country has near limitless water between aquifer and rivers, but primarily aquifer. So it's really uniquely positioned to explode and really just catch up to where it is. And the government has a plan to double the size of the economy over the next 10 years. And that's a big ask, but I think they have a shot of pulling it off. Also, something that's really, really noteworthy here, Ciaran, is that it's neat and it's tidy and it's well run. So when I talk about it being free, and very loosely regulated. So I say that, and it's 100% correct. But then when I get my Uber in Asunción, it gives me a very specific place. So for example, in front of my hotel, Uber was set up in a way that Ubers couldn't stop there, which happens in parts of the developed world. But I can assure you it doesn't happen like anywhere else I'm aware of in Latin America, that it directed me to a very specific place. So if it sounds like the Wild West when I kind of characterize it as free and frictionless, it is not that. It is neat and it is tidy. It's more reminiscent of Uruguay than other parts of Latin America that are, very chaotic and rough around the edges. And, standout things, Ciaran. I had a 2 a.m. flight from Asunción to Panama. And so I was getting my Uber at maybe 11:30 at night, very quick and easy shot. Maybe it was even 11:45. And a young woman was the Uber driver, and she had kind of kids' sports bags in the car and all of that. And, a young woman who appeared relatively comfortable. So, I'm making this point to speak to the general levels of safety. There's a lot of Latin America I wouldn't be comfortable getting into an Uber at midnight in. And here we have a place where, a woman is just completely comfortable and casual and, she's a life and she's family and kids and all of that. So the place, really, really grew on me bit by bit, day by day, I enjoyed it more. The food, just the cost of things is just the most inexpensive place you can be. It's really, really very pleasant.
And that's right, Roland. When you first were talking to Kurt about Paraguay, and he was sharing his experiences of being there, and how affordable the cost of living was, and Ubers were $1 and $2. My first reaction was to Google, okay, so what is life like in Asunción? And I was astonished by some of the photos I was seeing. It's far more developed. And then when you were showing us the video of walking around your neighborhood, you were walking past Lexus dealerships and into kind of gourmet-looking supermarkets. So I think like I'm sure people don't have a very strong impression of Paraguay, certainly not a place that I had a strong impression of beforehand. But the level of development there certainly has, as we've learned about it, has exceeded my expectations by to an X degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an Uber is probably $2 there, but Bolt is the one. Bolt is the one to use. It's significantly cheaper than Uber. And Bolt is just another
Yeah.
Uber-like app. So, Ciaran, I had this like, picture this. I'm in just an incredible sushi restaurant in this really, just really beautiful kind of steel framed structure with wood and glass. And it looks out onto just trees. And I'm there with one of our colleagues who's also an Irishman, and I'm just shaking my head. I'm saying, where would you see this? This is just absolutely class. They've taken extremely high value real estate, and we understand the development game. So we understand the sacrifices when you invest heavily in those materials and when you invest in those types of shapes, because you lose so much space by doing something really beautiful and really creative. And the food was amazing. And the the hair was amazing, and there were people coming and going, just groups of 20 somethings, just vibrant again. When I see that type of ambience, it brings me back to me moving to Dublin, Ireland, nearly 30 years ago now, when Ireland had those incredible demographics. Um, and then we walk downstairs, and there's this novel thing I've never seen before. There was like an unstaffed Mercedes dealership. So you kind of walk into the Mercedes dealership and you go upstairs for the restaurant, and the car showroom is there. I'm just looking around saying, who's working here? And I asked the maitre d' from the restaurant, and I was there like, oh, there's someone around. And next door was a Lexus dealership, and we had our sushi, which was amazing. And even though this would be a relatively expensive restaurant, it was just still, for nothing. Maybe we're going top level, and we've a whole ton of stuff coming. We've been walking all day, and maybe we're spending, maybe it's $18 a head, but we're in top level, and we're just eating sushi dishes coming. And then we walk across the car park. So it's a car park in a mall, and there's just tree cover everywhere. There's these beautiful trees like we have here in Guadalajara. Again, the developer of the mall didn't clear the tree. So again, these are all the contradictions. I'm telling you, like, it's free, it's frictionless, business can do, you know, pretty much what it wants, which is how it feels. But the execution in terms of planning and everything, is just wonderful. There just feels like there's a disconnect. And then we walked across that car park into just super high-end grocery store, the likes of which you'd struggle to see anywhere, which is part of a mall. And that's the thing about Asunción. Like, these neighborhoods are built around around new molds. The kind of the path of progress event in Asunción has been the creation of these new high-end molds. It's a young consumer oriented society. They love shopping, they love malls, and kind of to characterize it as malls again, is
Yeah.
it's not really telling the full story, because these are more like town centers. On the other side of the mall, there was a whole kind of food area, which is like bars, restaurants, indoor, outdoor, fine dining, you know, inexpensive, just the whole spectrum. And also very interesting is, when I talk about these neighborhoods, I'm not talking about a tiny little pocket. These are, we walked and walked and walked, always feeling safe, always being in nice neighborhoods. But the key for buying is proximity to those malls. So that's your kind of your ground zero. That's what the current renters want.
Yeah, I think people who are familiar with certain Latin American places, Medellin, for example, will understand that kind of mall culture where the malls kind of serve more than a function of just kind of stores and stuff. They can be, these incredible lifestyle kind of entertainment hubs almost, for the city. And run like they've said, the government has set an ambitious target. They want to double the economy in 10 years. We track transformations. We've seen these things happen. We know these things are possible. You could look at what happened in Portugal, how it went, so fast in 15, 20 years, utter transformation. We're both Irish. You're kind of have a few years in me, but you saw like Ireland transform, and I was grew up as well and saw how quickly this country changed because it was pro business, because it was internationalized, because it had the right demographics. Do you have any initial takes on Paraguay? Um,
I I do. Um, the I think they could pull it off. So the again, so just to before I jump into that, there's this is a different type of potential opportunity to our other more micro Rita ideas and deals, which is there's a path of progress coming to Northwest Costa Rica, tied to the ordinary rich resort. This is more like the situation I found in Northeast Brazil in 2007, 2008, when I founded Rita, when there is just this mass economic transformation that's being driven by, domestic and regional factors. I was singularly impressed with everything I saw, pretty much everyone I met, the quality of construction, the quality of vision, the commitment to long and medium term quality, and the fact that, Paraguay is, I like this idea of places that are almost more like a platform. Like, think of Panama, even think of Ireland from the perspective of multinational investment. So these are places where mobile people, businesses, and capital can freely come, bring their expertise and bring their capital. It's really, really important to have the capital for a young country like Paraguay. But there's a lot of that in Brazil and Argentina, and they're coming. To give a example, I visited this. Oh my God, how to characterize it? I Let's call it a mall. Let's call it mall stroke town center. And so this is a place, Ciaran, where a big um, domestic family with a whole bunch of partners, just in an area that's close to, it's accessible to the different parts of town, to Centro, to new areas along the river that are set to open up, and also to that mall district. So it's in a kind of a nondescript setting, and they have just created this like just luxury shopping and dining experience. So they built all that, fronted all the capital. That was just opening up as I was there, and then they're building these luxury condos all around it. And very interestingly, in all those luxury condo buildings, Airbnb is banned. Okay, so these are only for people who want to live here full time. And that's an important thing to note that maybe we should come back to about how Airbnb is allowed in some buildings and not others. But these condos are just among the just the most luxurious you can see anywhere. Just an incredible gym. Just the whole thing was just super high end. Just these glass walls to terraces that, oh my God, they're so heavy. They move smoothly, but these are big, robust. And I'm walking around with some of the developers team. And I said to them, this really reminds me of Andares in Guadalajara. And they say, funny that it's the same people who are behind the design of Andares have come here to create this. And, again, the interesting thing about Andares is here in Guadalajara. It's a luxury mall, residential, healthcare. It's like its whole own luxury city. And Ireland is a small but rich country. And I would say there's double or triple the luxury shopping in this one mall in Guadalajara that there is in all of Ireland. There are these shiny skyscrapers that are hospitals next door to shiny skyscrapers that are banks, next door to shiny skyscrapers that are condo buildings. And this was all built in Guadalajara, inland, that was originally, so when my wife was in university here in Guadalajara, the university was out past the edge of town, and out past the university, there was this empty scrubland that's now this luxury thing, let's call it, dining. And that's what I'm seeing playing out there. It's just this capacity to one entity path of progress events that transforms a entire area. And a quirky thing about that community or mall is there's a luxury grocery store, different one to in the other one, and it's called Costa Rica. And I think it's a German people came and set up a luxury grocery store in Paraguay and called it Costa Rica. So go figure that. So I'm excited, Ciaran. I think an interesting thing to put in the mix when people hear me talking so positively about Paraguay and Asunción. This is all with the context that I actually got sick while I was there and spent my last night and again, I got sick, nothing to do with being in Paraguay. And to feel, because we all, when we travel to places, how it makes us feel informs part of that experience. And it really is material because, we just know places don't feel right. They feel shifty, they feel sketchy, or they, feel too cluttered. So, that's that still feel so positive about Paraguay, having felt so unwell there the last 2 days. It's another big material thing. So, Ciaran, I think they could pull it off. My working thesis now is that it's a yes. Yes for Paraguay. I think they could pull off this big macro move. Assuming it stays a yes, and this is an iterative process I'm going through. So, it started as a no, and then I have to go through the process of moving it into the yes box. It can still get knocked out of the yes box for new information or something changes. The opportunity is going to be to focus on blue chip. This is not, we're going to be looking for blue chip neighborhoods. There are very small number of them, best in class developer, blue chip neighborhoods, and ride that macro wave. And in the meantime, happily rent short term to all these, digital nomads and people who come to town for a Shakira concert or a football game. But medium term, this is a bet on Paraguay and on a, on a I mean, the government's target is double over 10 years. Whether they do it in 10 or 15 years, it's still going to mean absolute transformation. And of course, the upside is magnified with the best in class real estate, because that's where the demand will flood into. So again, just to come back to the one things that are very important to know, it's very important that some buildings allow short-term rental, others don't. Again, this is just a really, really nice thing about it. With the developers are really clear on who their market is and serving that market. And there's no saying to one group, we're going to sell to international digital nomads and they'll come and go Airbnb. And on the other hand, selling to local families. They're very, very clear on who their market is. And that makes for a much better product, because the short-term rental oriented communities are fully set up with co-working, all that type of stuff. And the family ones are set up just with these big barbecuing areas and playgrounds, and very, very family oriented. So the whole place and the whole experience was a breath of fresh air, in a world, where so many places have developed, prices have risen. We've just had this incredible run here at Rita since I founded it in 2008, where we've been able to find opportunity. And, just when I started to think maybe, it's going to be harder, maybe we're running out of road, up pops this opportunity. So I'm extremely excited, and we're very focused now on the developer side of things, and, looking at negotiating members only pricing and terms on best in class real estate there.
Well, it's hugely exciting given everything you've told us, Ron. It sounds like such an amazing place and such an amazing opportunity. And we'll share the video of you walking around the neighborhood. So I was so surprised by everything we've learned about Paraguay recently, and really excited to hear about more from you on Paraguay in the weeks and months ahead as we continue our research.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, Ciaran, and thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Speak to you soon.